Hey, here you are. How's it going, man?
Good. What's going on, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you coping with this quarantine?
It's not too bad. I mean, I normally like during the day because all my work and my travel is usually overseas, so everything's kind of on a halt right now. So realistically, like when I'm not traveling for work for Bellator or for doing stuff with my gyms are all shut down right now, which is the shitty part. But the rest of it is it's not too bad. I mean, my days really not much has changed except for the evenings when I usually go and train and teach classes and do things, at my gyms. That's about it, man. Not much else has changed.
Has anyone ever told you how handsome you are? I think you're the most handsome guest we've had on here so far.
You must not have had a lot of people on then.
Tell me this much, man. You've made this transition from fighter to analyst, and it seems like you kind of had to leave one life behind. I've heard you talk
Yeah.
about this a little bit and sort of come into another one. How have you found that transition?
I found it pretty easy to be honest. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that I still need to do to develop to be an analyst, to be a better analyst than I am now. There's a lot of work that goes into it. I know a lot of guys that I've worked with before in the past. They did no research. They had no idea. Talking about fighters, they were really just going it based off the actual fight. But if you want to be good at this job, you need to do your research. So you have a lot of input and things to talk about when it comes time for these guys to fight. I mean, there's a lot of guys on our Bellator roster because we had a huge UK signing with a bunch of guys and also
Yeah.
some girls. And it was a lot, like an overload of people that were signed. And I had to go through a list of, almost 100 something fighters and look up every single one and see who they were and see how good they were at what positions. Are they good on the ground? Are they good off their back? Are they good from top position? Are they good on their feet? Are they more of a counter striker? Are they southpaw? Those are all like little things that people just take for granted when they're watching a fight. Those are all things that I have to get into. And I'm still, even to this day right now, I mean, and I have so much more work to do, but the transition has been pretty good. As long as I'm committed to this, like you should be, like I was fighting, I think the transitions are pretty good.
It's funny you mentioned that about the research and stuff because I remember being surprised when I met you in Dublin. I think it was before James Gallagher and Roman Salazar's fight, which was supposed to be James and Cal Eleanor. And you knew so much about the style of Richard Kiley, who really had only fought on like American TV one time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like that's a lot. There's a lot that goes on with it. You have to look and research. I mean, I did a lot of research of Kylie's fights, even when they weren't like more point fighting stuff. I did research on, just kind of his background, where he came from. I mean, those are all things you can find on MMA sites. I mean, you have to dig deep though. It's not something you just find on the local channel. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of research that went into some of the sites that he had done interviews with are no longer exist, but randomly I just came across them somehow. So there's ways to do it, but you got to find ways to figure it out. A lot of guys, what they'll do is a lot of people when a lot of fighters when they come over, I've noticed that they look at what their last fight was. Well, I like to look, as far back as, up to like 7 or 8 fights. You don't want to get too far in the past because now you're digging up the past, and that's not really that they're not really that fighter anymore. You want to still get into that 5 to 6 fight range because they'll still have some tendencies that they did back then that potentially worked for them that now no longer are not working for them. And those are things that you can talk about in talking points against their new opponents.
A lot of people see sort of MMA as like a sport that's got like different eras. So there's like the pre-McGregor era, the post-McGregor era, and there's a lot of different like Fertitta era in the UFC and things like that. You're from an era before where a lot of the current casuals came from as a fighter. Did you find like appearing on things like Joe Rogan made you more like it made you better known, raised your profile, almost like fighting in the UFC would have back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, my show when I went on Joe Rogan's show, it was definitely like we'd had a relationship back in the day. Like I had known him from back in the
Yeah.
day. In terms of like, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? Like it wasn't nothing like where we were out tipping bottles back. But I mean, he's one of those guys that you can have a friendly conversation with, you can socialize and be around with, and just an all around good guy. Doesn't want any bad vibes around him. Just wants to be himself. So when I did his show, it was like something that I've been waiting for years and years for him to ask me, like, hey, you want to come on? And to be honest, it couldn't have come at a better time. I think had I been on his show as a fighter, it wouldn't have been as important to me, or it wouldn't have meant probably as much to me. I think now as an analyst, I see and I respect a lot more of what he does, not just as an analyst, but also as I have my own podcast, Weighing In with Big John McCarthy. So the two of us, we just started this about a year ago. Seeing what he's done and developed in his podcast and what he's done over the years, and how John and I are doing ours now, and how it's growing and progressively getting better, it just shows the amount of work and time and effort and all the things that he's put into that. Think about all the guests that he has on that you would never even, like, different scientists, different food critics, different politicians. I mean, athletes. It doesn't matter. He's had them on, and and he can. I can't say he can. I don't want to say he gets real in depth with a lot of them. Almost all of them he gets in depth with about whatever their specialty is. He can really structure the conversation around what he knows, and then they chime right in, and he brings his guests in and makes them feel at home. I mean, it really was eye-opening to see how his setup was, how his studio was, like his warehouse, his facility. They call it the Big Man Cave. I mean, it's beautiful, man. Like, everything about that was great. I think like I said, I appreciate it a lot more, I think, now, because I'm an analyst now. That's one. So I can pick his brain about things like that. And two is, to see where he grew his podcast, the level at which he grew his podcast at, and seeing how difficult and hard it is. It's extremely difficult and hard. And to see where he's at is absolutely amazing. I think it's great, man. I think it's great. All those guys. I think Schaub, the same thing. People want to give Schaub a hard time and hate on him a lot. But dude, the guy was going to play football. Then the guy went to fighting MMA. He's an athlete.
He was super good too.
Super good. He was a good athlete. Joe told him one day that he wasn't elite, or he wasn't going to be champion. And maybe at that time he wasn't going to be. But also too, not everyone's cut out to be a fighter. No. But he found his niche, man. And I think a little bit of guidance from guys like Joe, guys that have lived the life, in all different directions. Joe being a little bit older than him, knowing what to expect in the business and the show business and in all these types of businesses, kind of put him in the right direction. And everyone knew Brendan had the personality to be who he is. There was no doubt about it. Think about Fox wouldn't have used him if he didn't have that personality. I mean, Brendan had the personality to be who he is, and it's grown for him. And I think he's doing a great job, man. Those guys that have left fighting and they continue, they do podcasts and they grow and they're getting better at it. I think that's just another way, an avenue for them to make money, as well as to stay relevant in the sport. And I admire them for that. And I did Brendan's show twice already, and when I did his first show with Big Brown Breakdown, and I talked in depth about how I'd grappled with him in Hawaii at BJ Penn's first UFC gym opening in Honolulu. And I was very surprised how good he was on the ground. I mean, he moved like a 70-pounder or like a 55-pounder. He moved so fluently on the ground. I was very, very impressed. So, excuse me.
It's funny that you talk about Brendan and because I was just listening to your Weighing In show from, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where you're talking about that discussion, and maybe has someone had that discussion with Luke Rockhold that Joe had with Brendan Schaub. Your last fight was pretty brutal against Pitbull. Did anyone have that conversation with you between then and sort of the start of this year when you retired?
No, I was having that conversation with myself. I mean, it really comes down to the fighter. And I had that conversation with myself, I would say, probably right after the Benson fight. I just really wasn't. I mean, once you realize that I was this close, I actually was on the title shot, and that was the second time in the UFC I'd been offered the title. I was supposed to fight Eves, and that was supposed to be for the lightweight title, and then eventually it just was never offered. But it was we were both I was number one in the world, he was number two. We were ranked 1 and 2, and we were supposed to be fighting for the title. Never happened. They got rid of the division for 2 years. Then fast forward, however many years, and now I'm back in the UFC, and I knock out Nate Diaz, or TKO, whatever they're going to complain about that because I said knockout. But, I finish Nate Diaz, and I get offered the title shot with Pettis, and it comes down to the fact that, Pettis apparently got hurt and was out, and so that he got out and he was hurt. They offered me Ben, and I took that fight because I wanted to make sure that nobody else was given that shot after I beat Ben. And when that slipped away, I had that conversation with myself right after that fight. I just basically said, maybe this isn't for you anymore. I noticed some things before the Nate fight and during the Benson camps that I wasn't as fast as I used to be. I didn't enjoy the excitement in the cage and the walkout and the hype before the fight anymore. And maybe you guys didn't, because, you know, I definitely never stopped training. I was very amped up to fight these guys. But then, you know, then after that, they weren't offering me like top level caliber guys. And I just knew that there was never a chance for me to get back to the title. And so I kind of just, when you know that at 37, 38 years old, you know that, it's like, okay, let's dial this back. Let's not take this too serious. I mean, like, we take it serious, but let's not make this our main focus. And so I opened up some gyms, started building some businesses, started a podcast, just kind of started doing my own thing, you know. And that being said, man, that's exactly where I'm at. I look at my podcast as like a way to get me reps in front of the camera. You know, those in-cage interviews with fighters, like with Rogan, what he does. And DC now has to do, Daniel Cormier, what they got to do. Dude, you need reps in front of the microphone. You can't just walk up there and ask these guys these questions. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. Fighting
I never envy you guys when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you think about how hard it is to interview them. It doesn't matter. Even if they won, oh, it's the exciting part. Great, lovely. But the questions don't just flow out of your mouth so easily, and they're so amped up. You got to dial them down. You got to make sure you don't give them the microphone. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts to this. Someone in your ear telling you, okay, last question, wrap it up. Hurry up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Like, and you're trying to get the answer out of them quick. Okay, guys, got to go, you know, for commercial breaks and things like that. So there's a lot that goes on. There's, like I said, with the Rogan show, I really respected more being on there after, because you respect what he has grown and what he does so well over all these years. You know, and I think I'm just at the beginning stages of where he started off at, and you know, and I think it's great, man. I'm excited for what the future holds.
Let's talk Bellator a little bit. Let's be honest with ourselves as analysts, as fight fans. Obviously, you as an ex-fighter. Obviously, Pedro Carvalho is fighting Pitbull for the featherweight title whenever that does happen in the featherweight Grand Prix, and so that's a fight that can go either way, because that's how fights are. He's one punch away from being champion. But outside of Carvalho, are any of these SBG guys going to be world champions?
Oh, I don't know, man. I couldn't tell you. It's funny you say that, because I'm gonna walk up to when I go up to Ireland next time. I'm gonna head over to SBG. I'm gonna watch like a couple of days of training and see which guys are there, see which guys are training hard, and you know, and kind of get a feel for their talents and their abilities. Because, like I said, this goes into me being an analyst now. I need to see, and I need to do the research firsthand and see how good these guys are with each other, not just with each other, but on the mats, you know, in the cage. Are they somebody that rises to the occasion, you know, when the lights turn on? Or are they someone that is better in the gym than they are when they fight? I want to see that, because there's a lot. Like, for me, I was never the best guy in the gym at all. But out of all the 155 pounders that came through our gym, outside of Khabib now Islam, but I was probably the only one that's ever got close to being the champion at 155. You know, we've had Gray Maynard, we've had Tyson Griffin, Frank Yeager became champion. We only had him for about 2 fights. You know what I mean? Like, there was guys that all came through AKA back in the day. But consistently staying there at that level, it was pretty much me, I think, at that level for the longest time. And so I think that I want to see these guys. Like I said, I was never the best in the gym. I want to see if they're good in the gym and good in the cage, or if they are just world beaters in the cage and they're shitty in the gym. That's a lot you can talk about when it comes time to hype them up, to build them up, to make them stars. I mean, you got to remember, my job, no different than Joe, no different than Daniel Cormier, is to make our fighters sound the best. And I see traits in some of them that just fucking amazes me. Like, dude, you are good. You know, when I look at Patricio and I look at his wrestling now, whereas comparison to his wrestling from before, and there's no doubt in his knockout power after knocking out Michael Chandler. I mean, we've seen knockouts all the time by him, but, you know, to knock out a 5-pounder and the speed he possesses and all those things that come along with him, I can't say, there's no way I cannot say he's not number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in the world. Out of any promotion, there's no way I can't say that. As far as the SBG guys, I got to see them firsthand. Do I think Peter Cleary is good? Yes. Do I think he'd be champion? I don't know. I think his fight with Patricio.
Do you think he even beats Patricio Pitbull?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I can tell you this, though. if he gets hit or kicked like he did against Ryan Scope, that means that the fight is over, because people don't always get up from the Patricky fight, the knockdowns and knockouts. You know what I mean? And
you know more than anyone, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, like, when you're talking, yeah, exactly. So when you're talking this conversation about, do I think Peter has the ability to potentially do it? Yes. But if Peter gets one clean on the chin, like any fighter, they get it clean on the chin, it could be lights out. But him and his brother, Patricio and Patricky, possess that power that guys just don't get up from. And so those are things that concern me. And with Peter, he's getting better every day. You know, and maybe people look at some of his past fights, but dude, you can't look that far back. He's better every day. As long as he continues to grow, I think he has a potential chance of getting towards that title shot. Ton of fighters recently. So he's got a ways to go. With the win over Patricky, that puts him right in that conversation. But you still have that, and then he'll potentially probably end up fighting Patricio if he ends up beating Patricky, because Patricio is the champion there. You've got other guys in that division, you know, that need to sort it all out. I mean, I'm hearing that AJ McKee, after winning the title, may defend at 145 once or twice, and then he's going to 55. So that's another guy right there if he wins that title. You know, like there's people out there that have the ability to be world champions. Pedro Cavallo, what he does to me better than anyone is he convinces me that he's going to beat Patricio. I've never seen someone so confident in themselves. I could not. I mean,
and we've never seen him in there with anyone even close to Patricio.
Yeah, you're right. But I've never seen someone talk to me in the way that he has talked to me and said, look, you just don't get it. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him any way I want. I'm going to beat him on the feet. I'm going to beat him on the ground. He's like, I'm going to put the pressure on him, and I'm going to make him tired, and I'm going to do all the things that makes him fight a fight he doesn't want to fight. And honestly, until someone else proves him wrong, I'm not leaning towards him. I'm leaning towards Patricio because I feel the same way about Patricio. But he's definitely very dangerous, extremely dangerous. And do I think he's got a chance? Hell yeah, I think he's got a chance. I think he's got a fucking really good chance. But we'll see. We'll see. 5 rounds is no joke for anyone. The preparation that goes into that, this long break in between, maybe giving his body a little bit of rest, or if he continued to train on, did he amp up and get better? Did any injuries come in the process? Those are all things from both camps you got to start figuring out. But I got to tell you, I saw him in Ireland, and when I saw him in Ireland, I saw him a couple weeks later in Connecticut for that fight that fell through because of the virus. He pretty much convinced me that he's going to beat him. I mean, he pretty much had me thinking, like, when I walked away from the conversation with him, I was like, dude, he's going to win. Holy shit, he's going to win. And then I go back and I watch highlights of Patricio.
I was the exact same.
I walk back and I watch highlights of Patricio. I'm like, there's no way Pedro's winning this fight. But then I go back and I talk to Pedro. Pedro's like tweeting me and sliding in my DMs, dude. He's like bugging me every time he sees me give Patricio any compliments, anything about the fight. He hits me up in my DM. He's like, hey. He's like, this guy ain't going to beat you. Don't get it, Josh. He's like, you're not giving me credit. You got to understand. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. I'm going to beat him this way. I'm going to beat him that way. And I'm like, I guess we're going to find out. That's why we fight the fight. But, man, am I fucking I'm just talking about right now. I'm amped up for the fight.
Man, I was so pissed off. I had just moved to New York a couple of months earlier, and Connecticut's like nothing away. Like, it's a few hours. I had my bus ticket bought. I was going to the fight. I had done the media day in New York a couple of days earlier, and the day of, we get the email that it's not happening. Yep, you were there, right? You had traveled all the way from the West Coast.
Yeah, I was there. I got there on Tuesday. Yeah, so I got there on Tuesday, and we'd been there, and we had kind of heard some buzzes that we may be canceling the show, but then the casino was like, no, we don't need to cancel the show. Like, we're a sovereign land. We don't need to. We were run through a separate commission. We have our own commission. You know, we're not run by the state. We were like, okay, maybe we're going to do this then. And then I think Coker just put it in the hands of himself and just said, hey, you know, for the safety of everyone, fighters included, fans, everybody, you know, let's just be cautious and let's not do the show. And then he reached into his pocketbook and he paid all the fighters their full purses. I got to tell you, man, I've been around the block a long time. It's very rare that happens. I mean, you just saw all the fighters in London on the UFC show, and I'm not knocking them. They got paid. but they got paid a small percentage of what their purse was, you know, for those upper echelon of guys. So that kind of sucks for them.
And there's nothing to say that those guys wouldn't have had these, you know, performance of the night knockouts or these, you know, incredible showings. And so the people who are really great strikers and are knockout artists on that card are now missing out on potentially a win bonus and maybe even the bonus for, you know, a performance of the night too.
Some of those guys, though, you know, are making, you know, $250,000, $300,000 a fight. And then, you know, for them to get 20 grand, it's a little rough.
Yeah.
I mean,
20 grand wouldn't really pay for a camp at that level, right?
People don't realize how much camps cost, man. Camps are expensive. You know, it's you have your diet, your nutritionist, you have your trainers, you have, you know, your personal trainer as far as your strength conditioning coach. You know, some guys leave for camps and they train somewhere else in another state. They're in a hotel. You know, there's all these things that go into these expenses, and then that you don't get paid. It's like 20 grand, sure, 20 grand, maybe 20 grand will almost for sure cover the expenses of their camp. But what about the money what about the money they were relying on to pay their bills? You know, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I get it. I understand. I would have liked to have, I'm not saying that everyone had to get paid their full purse, but 20 grand, it's a little rough, man.
If I were in the main event, 20 grand I would imagine like a Leon Edwards or a Tyron Woodley, 20 grand wouldn't even scratch the surface, right?
No, I would imagine they're making probably close to at least 180. I don't know what Leon's making, you know, but he's now in that upper echelon, but he might be on an old contract. So he's probably making 160, 180, maybe up to 200. You know, and Woodley's probably making about 250, maybe 300, but 250 probably. So who knows, man?
You said on your podcast that it was a slap in the face. You know, do you still stand by that comment?
Yeah, I do. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, there's some guys and girls that were on the card that, you know, 20 grand was probably their whole purse. I mean, obviously wasn't a slap in the face to them. They didn't take any damage. They got paid their full purse. Tip my hat to those. I'm happy for you guys. But I'm talking about for the upper echelon of fighters that we're supposed to make 120, 150, 180, 350, 300, whatever it was. When you're talking, you know, over $100,000 that you have the potential of making and you get 20 grand. I mean, sure, you didn't take any damage, but you still went through the camp. You still beat up your body during that camp. You were expecting a certain amount of money. You know, even if you were to lose, let's say you're making 180 and you were to lose and you lost half your purse, you're still making 90. You know what I mean? So 20 grand's not really. I mean, had they paid everyone their show money, I probably would have shut up about it. I probably wouldn't have said slap, you know. But I mean, like I'm talking about the upper echelons of guys. You know, if they paid the lower ones their full purse, just 20 grand, cool. And they paid the upper guys that cost a lot of money, just their show money, cool. You know, you can't say anything. I think that's perfect. They didn't fight. Their job was to fight, but they still put all the effort in to do the camp. They showed up there on fight week. We were supposed to show up there on fight week. They made arrangements and made plans. They did all these things to do that. And they should have all at least got their show money.
I was talking about a fighter who was on the UFC Lincoln card, and they were only, a couple of weeks out from the London one, and they get nothing. And they were deep into their camps too. They'd already paid for the camp. And the UFC kept telling them, be ready, we're going to have something sorted, and nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't explain or speak on that. I think there's a lot that goes into this, and there's a lot of backstory. You know, WME, they bought a bunch of properties, basically, like, that are all live shows. And so right now, the fact that no live shows are going on, I mean, they're kind of hurting financially. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the UFC is owned by WME. So I think financially they're really trying to get themselves back on track as fast as possible, because this is just one of those blows where they're kind of, I don't want to say hemorrhaging money, but they're putting a lot of money out right now that nothing's coming in, you know, to set these shows up. So I tip my hat to Dana on trying to do this and get it done. And, you know, I'm still skeptical of Fighter Island, but I mean, I'm actually pretty happy the fact that he's able to get all these shows done in Florida here coming soon. And I think he's doing a good job of trying to make sure that his fighters being active. Now, what I think they're doing, when you said about the other fighter that didn't get to fight, didn't get paid anything, there's probably a big basis is probably because nothing's coming in, so they're not going to pay those guys. You know, and it's a shitty situation to be in, but no one knows when we're going to have live shows again. And normally the gate is what pays the fighters' purses, and then all the pay-per-views and all that stuff goes right into their pocket. And so when the gate doesn't pay the fighters, they're looking at hemorrhaging some more money. And so in the long run, they've got to be very cautious of how they spend their money with these guys. And so at the end of the day, the fighters that have the biggest contracts will be the ones that they fight first. And the reason being is because if they don't fight them, those fighters, once their contract is up and they still have a fight or two left on their contract, they still need to be paid for those fights that they didn't fight. So let's just say I signed a 3-fight deal and it was a year-long contract. In that 3-fight deal and that year-long contract, it's whichever one comes first. So if the year finishes first or the 3 fights finishes first, then that's how they pay you. But if the year comes first and I still haven't fought my 3rd fight, then they need to pay me for that 3rd fight. And so the guys that have the biggest pocketbooks, the ones that cost the most, they're going to make sure they fight those guys to make sure that they're getting their money's worth out of that fighter. The ones that are on the lower echelon of getting paid, they're not concerned about fighting them, because if you give them too much fuss or too much hassle, because they are the biggest, I mean, like, the UFC is a big ass show. They're the biggest, they're considered the biggest promotion in the world. If you give them too much hassle, they'll just cut you. So they'll pay you and they'll cut you. So it doesn't make sense for someone who's only making 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand to be poking the bear. Like, hey, you owe me this money because you didn't fight me in my last fight, and my contract's up. You wouldn't do that. Not over 40 grand. They would just say, well, we'll re-sign you just 4 more fights. Okay, now shut up and go away. That's kind of what they're doing. But the ones like John Jones, the ones like, whoever, Khabib, GSP, all those ones, right? Those guys, they don't want them to leave. So they also know they're fan favorites, so they want to fight them as much as possible, because those are the ones that people are going to tune in to watch, so they're going to make their money from that. And then they don't take a hit on having to pay them out on a contract they never used their fights on. So it makes sense.
I just saw a guy I really want to give a shout out to in the chat, Anthony Prettyboy, a Bellator star. Obviously the guy, the drop, the elbow drop celebration. We miss you, Anthony. Come back to Ireland soon. But this Fight Island, let's talk a bit about that. What pisses me off about the Fight Island is it wasn't that long ago, like a year and a half ago, that Firefest was the biggest fucking news story, and they couldn't get this thing done. They had 2 years to do that, and they couldn't get it done. And people expect Dana White, with way less money than that Billy guy had, and way less, infrastructure and all the rest of it, to get an island and get professional fights happening there. Who's going to commission these fights? How is it going to work logistically? Where are the fighters going to stay?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could go into it. I just don't know how you would go into it into a pandemic. That's the only thing. If they wanted to do this separately, when there was no pandemic, I think they could do it. They could find themselves an island that didn't have a lot of people. Let me give you an example. So they filmed they filmed Survivor, and they called it Cook Island Survivor. Well, in Cook Island Survivor, it was filmed with this island called Atutaki. But there's a little tiny island inside the lagoon of Atutaki called Barefoot. I think it's called Barefoot Island. Well, that's where they filmed Cook Island Survivor. The whole island has I think 1,500 people. But it's also got 2 very absolute gorgeous resorts. And there's plenty of land and plenty of place to put the fighters to stay, hotels, things like that. And there's also areas for them to set up an arena and cage and all those things. There's plenty of open space for them to do that. So if they wanted to do it, I think not during a pandemic, they could do it all day long. But the fact that they were trying to get it done during a pandemic, where are you going to do it? You need to have hotels. And if you don't have hotels, where are you going to put them in? Fire Island? Remember how that Firefest or whatever it was? They had little tents with mattresses. What are you going to do? So when all that happened, when they were trying to get it done during that time, I was scratching my head going, this is not going to go. This is not going to go through. Because at any island you go to, there needs to be people there that can set up plumbing, that can have bathrooms and toilets, and you need a hospital. You need to have a doctor's office. You know what I mean? So if one of these fighters gets hurt real bad, you need to be able to take them to the hospital. And so those are all the things on my mind. And during a pandemic, when you go to a small island like that, they're going to be like, yeah, F you. I don't want you bringing your disease-infested people here. They're not going to do it. It doesn't matter. And so when you put all those things into perspective, that has nothing to do with ragging on the UFC. It's just like in my mind, I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way there's no way that people with islands that live on the islands are going to let their family be at risk of people from other countries coming in and potentially bringing the virus. It's just not going to happen. Now that all this is dying down. Huh?
Like I said to you, right before the Tiger King, the biggest documentary on Netflix was all about how the UFC can't do this. It was a year ago, and the example is there. They can't do it.
So I think though too, I think they can do it. They just can't do it now. They can do it moving forward, because they can go to any island they want, and they can talk to the locals, and talk to the island, whatever, commissions, or, whoever runs the island, their city board or their island board, whatever it is. Yeah. They can go there and have this conversation. Like, we want to set up a permanent venue for our fights to be held here, until we can have fans, and this will be it. Can we do shows here? And we'll just pay you a shitload of money, which is more than you'll ever get paid, if no one comes here. So I think it's good. I think they can potentially get it done moving forward. They just weren't going to get it done during that time frame.
Maybe it'll be done sort of at the later phases of this coronavirus thing, when there's a little bit less pressure on people working in small businesses and people who are able to go and do these non-essential jobs. They'll be able to sort of put the infrastructure together a bit better. I don't know. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
That's another thing. I see you posted a lot about this coronavirus online. This is an interesting thing, this whole non-essential or essential jobs.
Yeah, I mean,
my job is essential. Any job is essential.
Yeah, I think anyone making an income is essential. I just think that when you have other countries that have shown that if you just put it in the hands of their citizens and you should explain to them how important it is for you to keep your social distancing, wear your mask. If you want to wear gloves, go ahead and wear gloves, whatever it is. But just be very cognitive of what you are doing. If you sneeze, cover your mouth, whatever. If you wear a mask, if you sneeze in your mask, whatever it is. These are all things that some countries have told their citizens, and they've communicated with them. Whereas in our country, you would think that we would be following something similar to that. Like, hey, everyone, social distancing. Hey, everyone, wear masks. Hey, everyone, try to minimize. If you're not feeling well, you have these type of symptoms, stay home. Let citizens try it for a while. Instead, we just shut everything down. And now that we're back, now that everything has been shut down for this amount of time, people have lost their businesses. And 30 million people are on unemployment right now, and now they just announced in the last couple of days that nurses are being furloughed, cops are being let go, firefighters are being let go. Who's going to defend all these things when looters start coming out now? They know there's going to be less cops. They know there's going to be less firefighters. They know there's going to be less EMTs, all these things. Who's going to be out there helping the people? So we've really just started stabbing ourselves in the foot, and so we've got to be careful on how we handle this. I think we need to open up. I think the whole country needs to open up, but we need to open up with guidelines. And the guidelines need to be like, hey, we understand you have family. Please go ahead. If you guys socialize with each other, we understand that. But you don't go crossing state lines and taking whatever you potentially may have to another state. Stay within your own community. Just stay with whoever you normally communicate with, stay within them, but also social distance, wear your mask, obviously wash your hands, wash your ass, those kind of ththings, those are things that are important.
I would hope you're washing your ass when there's no coronavirus. Jesus Christ.
Bro, you see, it's so funny. You go, if you go on YouTube, funny, I go on YouTube every once in a while, I get stuck in these wormholes, and I'm just one video after another. And next thing you know, you're watching a video of this chick with her hand down her pants at the gas station, picking her ass and smelling it. And you're just thinking to yourself, this is why we have the COVID, baby. This is how the COVID started, So it's really strange. It's something you really can have to think about and go, gosh, man, people are really that way. And until you see it firsthand, like videos on YouTube, you're like, wow, it's true. People really are that way. They scratch their ass and they smell it. Interesting. So, there's a lot to be said about it all. And I think you got to put it in the hands a little bit of the citizens and let them let them try. Let them try, because I think a lot of people are realizing right now that it's either lose my business or mind the social distancing and wear a mask and wash my hands and have hand sanitizer, all these things, or lose your business and your livelihood. I think people will take the business and the livelihood every time.
Do you think people are being too harsh on the folks that are kind of like breaking the rules a little bit? Like people who are going out for walks, they shouldn't be going on. Like at the end of the day, it's not their fault that we got forced into this international shutdown out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, I think it's fucking stupid when people are sitting there saying like, "Oh, you shouldn't be walking." Shut up, man. The sunlight kills the virus, from what everyone's been saying. Sunlight kills the virus. Well, it's 78 degrees here in California right now, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm outside. I actually just went for a bike ride. I'm probably gonna go for a run later. I'm about to hit the pool and swim for a little bit. I'm gonna film my podcast later with Big John, probably around 6 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
These, all down in Southern California, they were talking about, they shut down the beaches. The governor of California shut down all the beaches. Well, they're out there protesting. It's already been proven that COVID doesn't last in the sunlight. So if people want to go out and enjoy the sun, the beach, go enjoy it. Just mind your social distancing still. Don't be jumping on each other. Don't be fucking, holding hands. I mean, if it's your girl, and you live with her, cool, whatever. You guys infect each other, no big deal. But other people, like, just mind your distance. That's all it is. Don't put your blanket right next to mine if we don't know each other. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. It's not like the beaches are small here. They're fucking enormous, man. So there's plenty of space, plenty of room. And I think people that are out there, walking and running, I'm glad. The way you build up your immune system
100%.
is being outside. Is by being outside, not only just being outside, but being active, staying healthy. I mean, I have never seen so many fucking people on the trail that I run and ride my mountain bike on, than I have this last 3 weeks. People are just tired of being at home. And, and I think, who was it? I want to say it was Verizon was doing something for California to check and see, like, the amount of time people are spending at home during this pandemic. So they're basically tracking your phones. And when they did it, they realized that people are actually outside more often than they are at their house.
Yeah.
So during this whole thing, there's actually more people outside than there has ever been. So it doesn't make any sense. I think like people have called the cops on landscapers doing their job. I'm like, it's one landscaper. Unless you go out there and talk to him, what's the difference? They've come and told people that they can landscape in the areas. I think it's ridiculous, man. It's gotten to the point where I have a landscaper, and my landscaper is one guy. He comes, I don't talk to him. He just, leaves. Yeah. I get a check.
You think he's a piece of shit? I get it. I understand.
I get like one. I get one check. I get a bill from him. I get a bill from him once a month. I pay the check, and I don't ever see him. So it's just one of those things, man. I think people need to get over it. I think they need to work on, washing their hands and their ass, and let us get back out to normal conversations.
PSA for myself, Donna Corby, and the real punk Josh Thomson. Wash your ass, please.
Yeah.
Even when coronavirus is better, even when we never have to worry about coronavirus again, please, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It's grotesque.
Exactly.
Anything else? Tell me a bit about your Instagram. You post a lot of crazy shit on there. Are you trying to wind people up some of the time, or do you just like kind of see something funny and just say, "Fuck it, I'll post it"?
I see something funny and I just post it. So it's funny. I have a group. I have like a couple groups, different groups of friends, and we have like group chats on our. I have a group chat basically through text. And every morning I'll wake up to 3 or 4 new group texts of some sort of meme or something that's funny, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, fuck it, just post it. And that's why a lot of the time, some of it will be political. Like one day it'll be about Trump, the next day it'll be about how how don't like Trump, or how I like Trump, and how I don't care. I don't care about anyone's political views, because you're entitled to vote like I am, like everybody else is. Save your political views for when you vote. I don't need to hear about it. I don't care. I like to post it because it brings up good conversation pieces, but don't come at me hard, because I don't care, and I don't know you, so I care even less, because I don't know you. You know what I mean? So when people want to give me a hard time about whatever I posted, I'm like, and if you notice, I don't even reply or respond to most people. I mean, I very rarely do. I went through that phase where I was on there all the time, responding and replying to people, and And I realized I wasted a lot of hours of my life doing that. It
You're
just doesn't
very
make
good at replying to fans, though. People who are fans of yours, who send you messages and stuff. You're super good at that, from
Oh
what I
yeah,
understand.
I appreciate that so much, man. I mean, I wake up every morning because now that I do now I do all the Bellator shows in the UK. As I wake up every morning with probably like 15 to 20 texts or DMs from people in the UK or from Ireland, for anywhere around in Europe. They're hitting me up like, hey man, saw the fights, great job doing that, whatever it is. When next time you come, hit me up, want to buy you a pint. There's always something, and so it's great, man. I enjoy it. There's no reason not to. You got to remember that I dedicated a lot of my time to being an athlete, and my mind during that time was not always to like be everyone's friend. We're fighters, and so now that my career of fighting is done, and now I'm moving into being an analyst, I still love and respect all the fans that supported me my whole career. And even the ones that didn't support me back then have now become fans of me as far as an analyst. It makes me feel even better.
Man to man, how are you coping with the dating side or the romantic side of this quarantine? Do you have a girlfriend at the moment, or are you single?
Man to man, huh? Man to man. No one else is watching this. No, I mean, I pretty much just keep to myself, man. This is it. Like I travel a lot for work, and this is just me, man. So I'm social. I like to get out and just be out there socially with everyone. I like to have fun.
But do you have, like, are you finding it tough in terms of like talking to the ladies at the moment? Are you on any of the apps or anything? I'm on these apps and I can't get any matches. Quarantine or no quarantine, I can't get any matches. But even less nowadays.
No apps. No apps, man.
Oh
No
my
apps for
God.
me. If you see me on an app, send me it so I can say it's a fake. It's not me. So I can guarantee you it's not me.
What would your advice be to any of the guys on here who are single? What should they say to the ladies when they send the first DM, when they slide the DMs? What should they say? What would be your line usually?
Oh, so I don't know. I don't do the DM thing, man. I scroll through it. If I like something you posted, I don't care if you're hot or ugly. I don't care if whatever it is, man. Like I'll like it and I'll say hi, whatever it was. But it doesn't. I don't care. I don't know. I don't really concern myself with that. If you're gonna slide into someone's DM, don't just slide in and say something stupid. I mean, my suggestion is probably say something positive about, their page is, I guess. I don't know. When it comes down to it, like most of the time, like just stay doing what you're doing and the right person will find you.
I've got a friend who when he likes a girl, he'll like all of their tweets. Like this, like if it's like, and these are like girls that are like normal, they're not like famous or anything, so they'll have like 1 or 2 likes on each of their tweets, and your likes show up on other people's timelines. So we know who he fancies based on what we're seeing on our timeline. We're following this guy. Do you have any friends like that who are terrible with the ladies?
Oh no, I think it's good to like everyone's tweets, man. I think if you like what someone tweets, it doesn't matter if they're a girl or not. If you like what they're tweeting, then you like what they're tweeting.
You kind of like every tweet, man. It looks desperate.
I don't know. Maybe he's on there. Maybe he just so happens to be on there every time she's on there. Cut the guy some slack, man. He's trying to get laid.
Look, I understand. Look, he is trying to. That's a very, very good point. Let's go back to talking about fighting and talking about Bellator MMA. It looks like they're looking to get back in sort of, I think Scott Coker was saying July. Will you be involved in the broadcast for those shows?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, like, there's a couple of shows that I normally don't do, but I think because of this thing, they're going to cram as many as they can in. So I think July and August, we're going to be pretty busy. There's a couple locations that where those will all be at yet, but that being said, I think it will definitely be busy, but I should be on pretty much all the broadcasts.
The video paused. I got very scared there that we were dropped again. Anytime we see anything about Bellator or the UFC or anything, Dana cuts our feed. It's terrible. But do you think, when do you think that fights are going to be back in front of crowds? Do you think, like, for example, I'm thinking Bellator Dublin, do you think that's going to happen?
No, I don't. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we will eventually go back there, but it will not happen like July. It won't happen July, August, September, October. It won't happen. I could potentially see us heading back over there probably like around November, December, January, somewhere in there. Like we have been, like I'd say somewhere probably December, January, February, like around those times. I would love it to be there in October. I just don't know if it's possible. I think because a lot of the critics, as far as the science of the COVID, is talking about that it may start rearing its ugly head again around October, November. So
When
if
the
that's
sun
the
goes
case,
away,
so they're kind of waiting for. Obviously, we'll just see what happens. You know, it may go away for good. That'd be wonderful.
please
But
God.
you know, I think we're just gonna have to play it by ear. But it's hard to do that when you're when you're spending that amount of money on a promotion. And so I think right now we're gonna have to. I'd have to say no. We probably will not have that show.
In
Maybe
terms of fights
not definitely.
happening, in terms of fights happening with no crowd, sorry, I sorry for interrupting you, but I seen someone asking about losing a fight to someone you hate, and that's kind of given me a thought that's not really related to that. But we saw Submission Underground happen last week. Will we ever see you and Gilbert Melendez do that fourth fight in Submission Underground with Chael?
I think so, man. Chael and I have been chatting about it, and you know, I mean, I've told Chael, I said, bro, you got to get the money up, buddy. I mean, you're not going to just pay me nickels and dime, but I need to get paid baller style. So you need to raise that paycheck. No, I'm kidding. I think right now, we definitely have talked about it. I think Gil was even open to it as well. I believe Gil's already done one from before. I think he did. I think he went against Pat Healy, you know, and I think that was one of those. One of those conversations I had with Chael that him and I talked about. And I said, hey, why don't you have me and Gil? And he's always been open to it. He's like, you know what? That's a great idea. And so he's reached out to me a couple times and asked me, you know, or you want to do it? You want to do this? So I said, well, let's figure out the schedule for Bellator first, and then we'll go ahead and revisit this, you know, and move forward. He's like, all right, perfect. So we are in talks about it, and it's definitely been talked about, but we haven't taken the initial steps because of what's going on right now of when it would potentially happen.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things that would have to happen when Chael's allowed to kind of have a few people in and watch it and stuff like that. And you've also got to sit Chael down and tell him that you want to do a straight submission grappling match. He does all these mad fucking tag teams and fatal four-ways like it's pro wrestling. Have you seen this shit?
No, I haven't.
He does tag team submission grappling.
Hey, man, he's just opening the door to do something good. I think he's doing a great job. You know, I've talked with him. You know, we had Chael on our show about 2 weeks ago. On weighing in with Big John and I. And when we talked to him, I got to tell you, I tipped my hat to him and I told him, I've never told him this before, but I've said it countless times. He is kind of like the Michael Strahan of MMA. He works for ESPN. Yeah. He works for the UFC. He works for Bellator. He's worked for everyone. He's got his niche, man, and he does a great job at it. I mean, he comes in. I've never once heard him say, I mean, outside of his shtick that he does for fight stuff, but I've never, in a conversation with him, I've never heard him say something negative about anyone. Never.
Next to that, I almost never hear him even swear when he's talking in interviews and stuff. I mean, he seems like the nicest guy.
I don't think he does. Yeah, I don't think he does. I've never heard him swear. Actually, now that you bring that up, I've never heard him swear before.
I think maybe he called like Anderson Silva a dick one time, or maybe Tito Ortiz, and that's about as far as it goes. And maybe he's right. I have no idea. I never met either of those guys.
Yeah.
What Bellator fights are you most excited about watching coming up?
You know, I'm really interested in the Pedro Cavallo fight and Patricio. I definitely am interested in that. And I did an interview with Darren Caldwell about AJ McKee, his fight. And
that's a great fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. AJ McKee threw concerns for me in his last fight with Campos. He it makes me nervous, man. He got real sloppy, he got real careless, and the wrestling ability of Darren Caldwell concerns me. Like, cause he will out wrestle AJ McKee. Size wise, they're comparable. AJ's probably a little bit thicker, but Darren's the better wrestler. And I saw in that fight with Campos and AJ McKee that AJ got tired in the third round. And so all those things that factored in, those things concern me when you're dealing with Darren, because Darren has had conditioning issues also. But now he's not at 35. Now he's at 45. And the concern was always he was cutting too much weight. So that extra 10 pounds is a lot. If he doesn't have to cut that extra 10 pounds, I want to see how he'll last in the championship rounds. But both of them have shown signs of fatigue in halfway to the third or in the third round. So that makes it an interesting fight for me to see who ends up winning, because Darren is the better wrestler. AJ's the better striker. Can Darren keep him down, keep taking him down? after the third round? And can AJ keep it on the feet after the third round? So these are all things that play a factor. I think it's a great fight. Definitely one of those fights that I'm really excited to see. The whole tournament is fucking phenomenal, man. So I'm looking forward to those. I'm looking forward to those fights. You know, I think the hidden gem in all that is Emmanuel Sanchez and Daniel Weichel. People don't – no one's gravitated to them because Patricio's getting all the limelight with, you know, him being the champ. And AJ's getting all the limelight on the other side. So AJ's getting all the limelight there. Patricio's getting all the limelight there. No.
Neither of those two guys are good at doing the shit talking at the press conference or anything like that.
Yeah, but that's a good fight, though. That's the thing. It's a really good fight. That fight, to me, is going to be a phenomenal fight. So, action-packed, go-getter. Emmanuel Sanchez is right now, I feel like he's peaking right now at the height of his career. And I think he's got a good chance of beating Daniel Weichel, but I think Daniel Weichel is the technician. We saw that when he fought Saul Rodgers and dismantled him. Fought a slow-paced fight, stuffed all the wrestling. I think he's just one of those guys that always stays within his means and makes guys fight his fight. Daniel Weichel is probably the most technical guy in the whole tournament. You know, I mean, he makes guys fight his style, and that's a sign of good technique because he can move a little bit to the left, move a little bit to the right, you know, stick the jab in the face and make you fight his style of fight and his pace of fight, and that's a good technician right there.
Do you think it's time? Obviously, Lima and Mousasi was cancelled because it was supposed to take place in a couple of weeks' time. Is it time maybe for a middleweight Grand Prix? Or I mean, I feel like Bellator is great with the Grand Prix, but now there's potential to have three. We've got featherweight happening, middleweight, and of course, it looks like bantamweight should be a GP as well because there's no clear number one in that division, especially with Darian gone up to featherweight. Is it time for a Grand Prix in middleweight or bantamweight?
No. I think we're gonna have a women's one next. I'm not saying for sure, but I mean it does make sense. We signed a lot of top new talent for the girls. Alima Land McFarland's been the champion for a while now, and she's really coming to her own. And I think that it is a good time to see how she does against other girls that we have signed. You know, we have Liz Carmouche now. We have Kat Zingano. We've got a lot of good girls that we had signed coming in. You know, Leah McCourt. She's had some good performances. I mean, she won't fight at 124 or 125, but I'm saying like we have a lot of good, talented. No, not even close. But we've signed a lot of top talented guys. You know, Alejandra Lara, she's there as well. I mean, you put all these guys, you put all these girls in that tournament, and then I think you end up having some really good fights.
How good is Patrick Mix?
He's good. Man, is he good? I mean,
he is so good. It seems like there's nobody that can beat him.
Yeah, it's gonna be. He's good, and the reason why, and I'm not just saying that he's good because he's with Bellator. I'm saying he's good because I've had my sit downs and my talks with Greg Jackson. I've had my sit down and talks with guys that have went to Greg Jackson's to train for like a camp, you know, or get some training in their off season from not a camp, and they're just like, you don't get it, man. They're like, he just gave me fits left and right all over the mat. Just I couldn't get him off me, not just my back, but submission-wise, grappling-wise, top position wrestling. They're like, it's crazy to think, but he's good. He's really that good. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. You know, and I've also, Juan Archuleta went down there and trained with him. He's like, dude, he's good. He's really good. Yeah. Before his first fight with Bellator, he was talking about how good Patchy Mix was. And so when you have other guys you're potentially going to fight, and they're talking about how good you are, and the concerns that people should have with them, that lets you know that they stuck out in their mind, which means they've had them in the back of their mind, database-wise. Like, that's a guy that I got to be cautious of. That's a guy I'm going to worry about later on down the line.
You don't spend as much time in the UK and Ireland as we do, and obviously the big fight here is this Gallagher and Eleanor fight that seems to be like Khabib and Tony. Seems like we can't ever get it done. Are you, as someone who loves Bellator and knows these fighters very well, but also isn't like balls deep in like European MMA, are you as excited for that fight as the rest of us, or are you kind of willing to see those two guys fight other people?
Look, when they first announced that that fight was going to happen, I was like, okay, I see it. Okay, you know, I mean, I wasn't super amped, but now honestly, all of this delayed fight, and now the conversation went from them being friends to them talking trash. Because they were very respectful to each other in the beginning. And so I was like, all right, we'll see a good fight, decent fight. I think they both, Cal is huge for the weight.
Sure, he could
And
easily fight 155.
he's big. I mean, I've sat and talked with him a lot. He's a little bit, I want to say he's my height or a little bit taller. And I'm almost 5'11", I'm 5'10", like 5'10 and a half, something like that. He's right there. And so he's way bigger than James Gallagher. But James poses the speed, the threat, all those things that Cal doesn't have. I mean, the grappling is, I would say, mutual, but then you look at the body size. The body size is going to favor Cal, but then the speed is going to favor James Gallagher. There's a lot of things and a lot of different ways to look at this fight. But when the fight was first announced, I was like, all right, good fight for both of them. We'll see. The cream will rise to the top. Good stuff. But now with all this, that they were real friendly. Now they're not friendly anymore, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that people just don't realize. And I'm hearing all of this, and I'm thinking to myself, damn, this is going to be a nasty fight. Whoever wins this fight is going to be just talking hella shit because they went from being friends to not being friends and not being respectful anymore. So I think it makes for a good fight.
Bellator are pretty happy to do kind of a boxing style model with their younger fighters like James. I mean, James is so young. People forget he's 23 years old. They could have him fighting the Stephen Grahams of the world and the Roman Salazars of the world for years and years, and it'd be fine. They could give him 10 more fights with people he's definitely going to beat. And that really would only take him to 26, 27, and he could be, 19-1 then. What do you think they should do with James? Do you think Cal Eleanor was the right step after Jeremiah Labiano? Obviously, he's fought Roman Salazar, but that's, kind of that was an outlier because it was last minute. Is Cal Eleanor the right step for James Gallagher?
Yeah, I think so. I think he is. I mean, it's a big step up in competition for sure. But I think he's ready for it. We're going to see, though, on how, like I said, cream rise to the top. We'll see how it pans out. I think it is. But I also agree with what you're saying. He's 22, 23 years old. And you just got to let him progress. I mean, he won't hit his prime until 27, 28. Give him time. That's the thing. Give him time. And that you got to have that approach with young athletes. And young athletes, you got to remember, once you get to, you can't go backwards. You can go backwards, and then they'll start just cutting you. Your pay goes less. Like, then you'll lose your motivation. When you realize that you're not fighting the best guys, when you realize that you're not making your way towards the title, when you realize that your money's not the same as it used to be, then you're going to start seeing these, like, that's what happens. You'll start seeing fighters start losing the desire to compete. And then you don't want that to happen, especially to someone who's young. And so I think Bellator's doing them right. They're giving them guys that are evenly matched with them or slightly better or just under him. They're going both ways. It's whoever will accept the fight also. And then it's not only that, but then it goes on to whatever fits his money criteria as well. So when you look at guys like in the UFC or other promotions that are getting paid an obscene amount of money, well, then you're supposed to fight the best guys. You can't help. You got to ask for the best guys. And so the fighting promotion is not going to pay you $250,000, $350,000 to fight a nobody. And so James getting paid well. Cal Eleanor is a good fight for him. They're equally matched. And I think it's going to make for a good fight.
I suppose the argument for that would be that James really can sell out arenas no matter who he's up against. He could be fighting for a world title. There's only 13,000 seats in that 3 arena in Dublin, and he fills them, whether it's, Haraguchi or whether it's Stephen Graham, the total nobody. So, I mean, as long as people want to buy tickets to watch him win, it's the same with someone like MVP. As long as people want to watch him win, I feel like put him up against whoever you want and build him. Make his name bigger and then send him to the States, send him to the UK, and watch it draw there, just like boxing used to do back in the day.
Yeah. You gotta build him up. That's one. But guys like MVP, though, I mean, he's fought top guys. He just didn't get the credit for it because he dismantled them. Guys like Cyborg, sure, he was maybe on the downslide, but he made him look bad. Sure. Dave Rickles, same thing. He made him look really bad. Never before had made him quit. He quit. Like, he quit there in the cage. I mean, those are things that are all there. So, I mean, he's beat top guys. He's beat good guys. He just made them look bad and made them look. It looks embarrassing sometimes. And so people don't give him the credit he
beat
deserves.
Paul Bailey because of how that fight went.
Yeah. I mean, but like, that's the thing. You need to fight other. I think he needs to fight. He will start taking a step up in competition. Some of the times, his opponent got hurt when he fought Melillo in Italy. That wasn't his fault. It was the guy. It wasn't his fault, man. The guy was a last-minute replacement. The guy was also, I think, 11-2 was his record. So it wasn't like he was a chump. It's just one of those things, man.
I also like that MVP is willing to, if he knocks someone out in the first round, he's willing to fight 3 weeks later. You know, he did what, like
Yeah.
4 fights after he lost to Douglas Lima. He did like September, November, December.
Yeah. That's good, though. He needs to. He needs to stay active and busy.
All right, I'm going to let you go.
All right.
Sorry? I'm going to let you go after one or two more. I wanted to ask you, is Bellator the right place for celebrity fighters? We've seen Aaron Chalmers come in. Logan Paul looks like he wants to do it. Is Bellator the place to do it, or do you think these guys need to go and do their own thing, kind of like Logan Paul and KSI did in boxing?
Well, I think what they got to do is you have to look at your name value, and you need to understand where you are in the name value. If you're like, even though I'm not a fan of Greg Hardy, but he went to the UFC, he went there, and they pretty much had taken care of him all the way up until the Volkov fight. So they pretty much had kind of taken care of him, and they gave him fights that they thought he could win. But then we've also seen other guys like CM Punk who went there, and they didn't take care of him at all. I mean, they had him fight guys that could beat him. You know what I mean? They just dismantled him. So
they couldn't have taken care of CM Punk. He was terrible. I mean, he couldn't have fought anybody. He couldn't have fought a single one of the guys Aaron Chalmers fought, and Bama knocked him out. It couldn't have happened.
Yeah. You know, so I mean, it really depends, I think, on your level of the level of who you are and who they're going to match up with, and you know, your understanding with the promotion, how you feel comfortable. I do think that we have done a great job of trying to take care of our fighters, you know, but mistakes happen. Some guys win some guys lose some. You know, Aaron's had a downslide of, you know, of some losses, but then what also goes on though too is, you know, he just had a baby. Is like there's a lot of other things that go on with when you're pretty much celebrity status. And so he needs to, if he wants to take this seriously and he wants to have this fight, he needs to make sure that he continues to get better on the ground. He's got to get up from the bottom. He's got to learn how to do certain things. He's got his wrestling better. He needs to focus primarily on that. He's got dogs in his hands, man. He's got some heavy hands. So he's got to focus on not just the striking, but he's got to focus on his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu and getting up from the bottom.
All right. Last one from me. One of the we dropped you for a second. The meme with you is that you hate the UFC. You never say anything nice about the UFC. You're constantly shitting on the UFC, on Dana. Give us one nice thing about the upcoming fight. What are you looking forward to most about the upcoming week with the UFC?
I'm excited that he was able to get it done. I'm excited for them being able to do the fights. I just think at the time that when I was shitting on them over this pandemic stuff, nobody knew where we were. And the whole Fight Island thing was, in theory, it sounded great, but in reality, it wasn't going to happen. And so I wanted to make sure that people understood, like, stop blowing sunshine up Dana's ass. It's not going to happen. Now that all this stuff is dying down, there's a good chance they can have a Fight Island, because now that the pandemic's like starting to kind of fall away. The thing about him is, with Dana, I enjoy Dana. I enjoy actually I like what he has done for the sport. There's a lot of good things that I like about Dana. There's a lot of things I don't like about Dana, but there's a lot of good things that I don't mind about Dana. You know, I think a lot of people just don't like when you shit on what they think is their favorite promotion. You know, and I'm sorry, but I've fought every biggest promotion in the world: Pride, Dream, Strikeforce, UFC, Bellator. You know, I worked for one as a commentator for a couple of years. You know, I've been to all these organizations, and I see how they're run, and I know how good their guys are. And I know, you know, the presidents, the CEOs, whatever you want to call them, I pretty much know majority of them all. You know, I know them pretty well. They're all really great people. They're all really nice people. They work really hard, and they do a great job putting their shows on.
Do you and Dana still not get on?
As far as do we still what?
Do you still not get on with Dana?
No, it's not that we don't get along. I have no relationship with him. You know, I mean, you know, we used to talk back in the day. My first stint in the UFC from 2000 or 2001, 2004. We communicated back
in the
and
blind
forth.
date days.
Yes, the blind date days, very much true. That was kind of around the time we started having a falling out. But hey,
all right, Josh, I'm gonna let you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Sorry, what were you going to say before I let you go? What were you going to say?
I was going to say thanks for having me on, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Alrighty, I'll go have a beer with you when you're back in Ireland for the next Bellator fight. See you later, dude.
Later, bud.